All right, we're back again. As I've said before, this season is entirely Scott Paladin picks. So, if anyone's to blame, it's me. This week, though, we're joined by Sam Stark to talk about the seminal Nora Ephron, Tom Hanks, Meg Ryan classic, You've Got Mail. Because I've been so like creator pilled that like I'm broken now, and like I can't do anything without trying to like turn it into a into something.
No, I feel that. I feel it a lot.
So we both watched. Or did you actually go back and watch this movie?
I did. I went back like last week or something, and I watched it again.
I watched it on Sunday and realized. I mean, I didn't realize. I went into it knowing that like I didn't need to watch this because I can close my eyes and watch You've Got Mail.
Oh my god, yeah.
It's like it's so ingrained.
Yeah, I'll talk about it a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. But by now the audience will have joined us, and if unlike the rest of season 3, where we're just like chaotically talking about the media without talking about the people, Sam, you haven't been on Let's Get Weird About before, unlike everybody else. So I begrudgingly have to dedicate a little bit of time to who you are and what your story is. So could you please introduce yourself to the audience?
Hello, I'm Sam Stark. I am a first and foremost a audiobook narrator.
Mm-hmm.
I narrate mostly freelance, but I'm on a lot of publishing houses. I almost said roll calls. That's not what they're called, but
roster.
That's the thank you.
Sure.
And that's kind of like my bread and butter. But I am also a voice actor. I am part of the team of Breathing Space. I act and edit for that one, and I am in a bunch of Maltopia shows, a Rusty Quill production, and Unspeakable Distance, and a couple other sort of random ones. And I'm in the upcoming Shelterwood, a suburban gothic.
And if anybody is coming over here from the Behind the Locked Doors podcast, where we talk about the behind the scenes, obviously you'll know Sam very well because they're on that. So how did you first come across You've Got Mail?
My mom watched it a lot. It was one of those we would put on while we did laundry. I come from a family of 8, and I'm the oldest, and their laundry days were always kind of a big deal, and they were like every 4 days. And so You've Got Mail, Sleepless in Seattle, Star Trek, MASH, those are all kind of things that I sort of share with my mom. We were talking about this earlier. When I went back and watched it again this last week to kind of refresh for this episode, I realized, like you did, I really didn't need to because I can quote the whole thing. I know every mannerism that Meg Ryan has, and it makes me think of my mom. Like my mom would also quote it with me. Like we probably watched this movie like 50 times. It's insane.
Yeah, it's... I don't know when I personally like the switch flipped in my head and I became I remember at some point that like every young person who is socialized male in America, like rom-coms are not for me, right? Like that was that was a socially inappropriate thing to like. And I don't know when the switch flipped. At some point along the way, I realized that I was watching You've Got Mail over and over again, along with Sleepless in Seattle and When Harry Met Sally, and also some really dumb older ones. But like those are the big 3, right? And I literally do not know, like I don't know what changed in my brain. I mean, obviously I just abandoned the fact that it wasn't supposed to be fun. It wasn't supposed to be a fun movie for me, but like, it's there are many arguments about what is the best of the Nora Ephron 3, which are those 3 movies, the Meg Ryan, Nora Ephron movies. And I do not understand anybody who doesn't come down on the side of You've Got Mail.
I am a huge Sleepless in Seattle fan because I am a Seattleite. so I kind of feel like I need to be in Sleepless in Seattle's corner. But You've Got Mail is just extremely relatable, and
Yeah.
there are so many quotable lines. There's a lot of quotable stuff in Sleepless in Seattle
Yeah.
too, but I think that I think my mom liked this one
Yeah.
more. Um, I have to say though, however, when I
Yeah.
went back and rewatched it this last week, I haven't watched it in probably 20 plus years.
Mhm.
Um, and even though I could still quote everything and I still really liked it and it's a fun
Yeah.
movie and stuff, I found that on this most recent rewatch that it is uh, a lot more. I don't want to say scummy, but like it, it doesn't work anymore.
Yes.
It doesn't
I
work
think that
anymore.
that it has aged um possibly the least well of those three as well.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think I'm with you on that one. Although that's being said, I have not seen Sleepless in Seattle in a while, and if I remember, it might be that just um, Meg Ryan is the creepy one in that one a little bit, because there's a whole. I mean, like, yeah, but we're not here for that one. But like, I think that one might have some problems. When Harry Met Sally, I think is just realistically messy
Yes.
and not scummy. Uh, Tom Hanks's character, like when watching when watching You've Got Mail, we are getting so far on the fact that Tom Hanks is incredibly charming,
Yeah.
um, that like that character remains likable because we like Tom Hanks,
Mhm.
and uh, but yeah, we'll discuss that further.
Yeah.
I guess we should probably catch the audience up. This is not a spoiler. This is not a movie you should go into blind. So if by some chance you're listening to this and you have not seen You've Got Mail, um, but you want us to tell you a little bit about what it is. This is a 1998. Ooh, that's a good question.
That sounds right. Right around there.
Yes. This is, oh, I'm so good. 1998
Yay.
movie, directed and written by Nora Ephron, also written by her sister Delia Ephron. It's a remake of The Shop Around the Corner, a Jimmy Stewart movie from I
It's
think
very
the
good.
1950s,
It's very
which is
good.
also good, but
Yeah.
very different. Not the same vibes in a lot of ways.
Mhm, mhm.
That itself was a adaptation of a stage play called Perfumery, a Czech stage play, which has also subsequently been adapted in several ways to other stage plays and also movies. So like this one conceit of the main plot has been adapted a huge number of times. It stars Meg Ryan and Tom Hanks, which is interesting because they also were in Sleepless in Seattle, also as like the romantic pair. Um, so they just were like, let's just do it again. Like this worked. Let's just do it again. I love
Yeah.
that. And the main conceit is that Tom Hanks is the scion of Borders Books, basically, or Barnes and Noble. He's the
Yeah,
guy
it's like
who
Barnes& and
runs
Noble.
the giant chain bookstore,
Mhm.
and Meg Ryan is running a tiny children's bookstore in New York. It is incredibly. This movie is so horny for New York. They love New York so much. Um, that and that so they are against each other in business, but they have they've started a love affair online where they are exchanging emails but do not know each other's real life identity. And so they love each other in one context and they hate each other in another context. Over the course of the movie, Tom Hanks finds out that Meg Ryan's character is also
Kathleen Kelly.
Kathleen
It's
Kelly,
Kathleen
also
Kelly.
shop girl. And then he spends the latter part of the movie uh, to say it charitably, I would say that he is doing his best to resolve the situation. To be uncharitable, I would say he's gaslighting the hell out of her and manipulating her in order to get us to the happy ending that we all love because we're suckers. So, um, yeah, this is a delightful film. It's one of my stealth Christmas movies, like where it's
Yes.
like not like you wouldn't think of it a Christmas movie. Like it doesn't have a Meg Ryan and Tom Hanks are not wearing red and green sweaters on the front of it in front of a Christmas tree, but like Christmas, it happens over the span of Christmas time, starting and ends in the spring, and it feels very Christmas vibes for me. So it's one of my like whenever we do a giant holiday movie extravaganza, it's always one of the ones I pull out. So it's like right between Muppet Christmas Carol and Die Hard, right?
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
Uh, so I think Sleepless in Seattle was first. Let me double check real quick.
Her hair was long, so I'm assuming yes.
Yes. So that's 1993. Okay,
Yeah.
so this is. I think we could explain some of the sharpness of this movie as having been like additional experience from Nora Ephron and also uh, the leads. Like this is just sort of the refinement of the formula. It's also like an adaptation of an adaptation, so it's had a lot of time to like gestate inside of various other ideas and go through revisions, which maybe is why it works. The script is eminently quotable. Like the amount of fun Nora Ephron and Delia Ephron were having with like writing fun lines that you could just say again is amazing. Like they're just being the movie is very playful in that way. I think it's
Hmm.
really fun. Um, they're not taking itself very seriously. Everybody's kind of quick-witted, but also kind of a doofus, which I think is exactly right for a romance, for a rom-com. You don't want to have like Aaron Sorkin's writing would be terrible for a rom-com because like everybody is a little too on the ball and a little bit too clean, and the script wants everybody in an Aaron Sorkin movie to be the smartest person in the room.
Yeah.
And I think for a rom-com you need a little bit of a dumbass in every character.
Everybody's very sweet.
Yes.
I would
Well, not
really.
everybody, not Dabney Coleman, that's for sure.
Well, no, but
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
if we're talking about our two leads, they're
Yes.
both, even though Tom Hanks's character is actually doing something really terrible, it's not really him.
Yeah,
I, I would
we'll get to the
not.
script doctoring part of this later when we
Yeah,
talk about that. Yeah.
I would not be surprised if when they were penning the script for, or just the idea of this movie, um, they already had Tom Hanks and
Oh,
Meg Ryan in
yeah, I'm sure.
their heads,
Yeah.
because I don't think that either one of those actors is acting. It feels very, very authentic. Like they both feel incredibly like, just they showed up on set and they were like, just kind of do your thing and like be cute together,
Yeah.
because it feels incredibly realistic when they are talking to each. And I know that they have really great chemistry anyway,
Yes.
but all the little kind of mannerisms that Meg Ryan has in this movie, and all of the things she does with her head, and like there's just so many quirky
Mhm.
things that seem so realistic, and they were probably just like, yeah, just do the thing.
Yeah, I wouldn't go so far as to say they weren't acting, because I know these two both have chops and
Oh yeah.
they're very much turning it on for the camera. But I also agree that at this point, I mean, Nora Ephron has worked with these two before and
Hmm.
known how good they are together.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
famously, like Sleepless in Seattle, like they don't meet until like the very end of that movie, so you don't get any of them on screen together.
Yeah.
And like when you know that these two can work well on screen together, like you just need opportunities for that to happen. You just need to have them, have a contentious relationship. You want them to be cute and flirty with each other. You want to have the sweet romance of the letters as they read them to one another. So I can absolutely see like getting to the end of production on Sleepless in Seattle, be like, God damn, we wasted our Meg Ryan and Tom Hanks. Like they could have been on screen together so much.
They had such great chemistry with the rest of the cast, though. The rest of the cast is so good for Sleepless in Seattle.
Yeah, this is full of great little like tons of actors who were not any not they weren't nobody at the time, but they would not go on to become um who they would show up to be later. Like they would
Yeah.
all go on to great things. We've got
Sarah Ramirez.
um
They're in the movie for like less than like 2 minutes, because they play the cashier that he quote unquote charms.
okay.
I couldn't believe I saw her face. I saw their face, and I was like, oh my gosh. And
Yeah.
Heather Burns, who you would probably know from Miss Congeniality,
Yes. Who
she
doesn't
plays
like
Miss Rhode Island.
yes. She is so funny.
She's really funny.
Yeah, she's not like her character doesn't do a whole lot, but Heather Burns really like kind of kills that character.
She really does. Yes,
Which is
she's
amazing.
fantastic.
Like they don't give her a lot to do, and I love every moment that she's on screen. Like it's really funny. Also delivers like one of those lines that like just doesn't work anymore with the way that New York now is, where she's
Yeah.
like, I'm going to lose my part-time job and I won't be able to afford my apartment anymore. And I'm going to have to move to Brooklyn. And I'm like, lady, you could not afford
No,
Brooklyn now.
cannot. But that actually sort of was part of the thing that I was thinking almost the entire time I was rewatching
Mhm.
this movie, was the whole thing doesn't work anymore.
No.
because of like the actual setup of the whole movie.
Oh yeah.
Because the bookstore, there's a
Yes.
bookstore. Like it's all about a bookstore and a bookstore. And
It's an independent bookstore in Manhattan.
yeah,
Like that has like does not, I mean, there's no way that business model works anymore. Like it
no,
doesn't, a children's bookstore independently run, like it's just no, like it's just, it doesn't, I'm not entirely sure it would have worked in 1998. It definitely doesn't work now. It strains credulity.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, so, and talking about the other actors, we've got like Steve Zahn, before he kind of blew up, doing a great job.
he's so
Parker
funny.
Posey is,
Parker Posey's my favorite character. She's so obnoxious. Oh my god.
it's so funny because I remember before I knew who Parker Posey was, I watched this movie, and like she does such a good job of being like just a terrible lizard person.
Absolutely neurotic, just
Yeah.
absolutely neurotic.
And
I love her.
and the
I love her so
and
much.
over every, I'm like, every, as I grow older and my brain changes, I like her character so much more over
Hmm.
time. Like
Hmm.
originally it worked on me, but now I'm like, nah, man, Patricia Eden, I know she's a total like trash bag, and like she's the worst person in this movie, and nonetheless, like I would watch an entire movie of her. I like I
Yes.
just want like
Give me the You've Got Mail sequel that's all about Patricia.
yes.
I just love her so much.
Where she's just like, in starting her day by listing off like, oh, so and so died, which is one less person I'm not speaking to, and like so and so won an award, he'll be fucking intolerable.
Oh my
Like
god.
she is the character who should be allowed to swear officially in this
Yes.
movie.
Yes.
Uh,
Um, I would she might not be the worst character in this movie. I think it's actually his dad,
okay, yeah,
the
Dabney Coleman.
fox.
Yes.
He's I didn't catch a lot of this when I was younger when I was watching this
Mhm.
movie. There's a scene where he where oh, I've forgotten his name. What's what? uh main guy Fox F
Yeah, Joe Fox.
what Joe Fox.
Yeah.
He's in his dad's boat with his dad, who has just
Yeah.
broken up with his girlfriend, fiance, and they're just having this ridiculous conversation, and the dad is like talking about the girlfriend that he just broke up with, and um, he doesn't remember that it didn't work out with Joe's mom because he cheated on her with the nanny, and
Several
then
nannies in a row.
several
Yes.
nannies
Like,
in a row. So he
yeah,
cheats on
he
his mom
kept
with the
going after
nanny,
the nanny.
and then he cheated on that nanny with another nanny, like over and over and over again. And
Yeah.
and oh god. And then when he says that he broke up with Patricia, his dad's like, "Oh, do you think I'd like her?" And I'm
Yeah.
just sitting there like,
Yeah. Dabney Coleman is one of those actors who you know a movie that he's been in, and he is just epically good at making you hate him.
yeah, so
He's
slimy.
the boss in 9 to 5. He's kind of the main villain of the movie War Games.
Yeah.
And he is like, that's his thing. Like he's a character actor. That's what he does. He just plays like an 80s, 90s movie villain. Like that's his whole thing, is to just be uptight and everybody hates him. And he does such a good job of it. Like absolutely, yeah. You're right. He's almost certainly worse than Patricia. He probably would love Patricia if the two of
He
them got
probably would,
together. And it would
yes.
be awful. I also
Dave
want to shout
Chappelle is in
out
this.
Katie Finneran as Maureen the nanny, who gets exactly one line, and it is such a deranged line read that I think about this character twice a week, basically, which is she plays the current nanny, who is
Oh,
uh,
that's yeah.
and at one point, like the young wife of Dabney Coleman's character shows up and is like gonna drop the kids off with Joe for the day, and she's like, "I brought the nanny in case you couldn't handle the kids." And Joe's like, "Ah, that's okay. You guys can, that's fine. I don't need her." And the little cute little baby girl daughter's like, or Joe's aunt or whatever is like, "Oh yeah, Maureen's going through a divorce," and he's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry about that." And she's like, "It's my fault. Never marry a man who lies." And then she gives this villain laugh. And she just like throws back her head and laughs.
It's so unhinged.
It's so unhinged. But like the fact that it is such a weird line read, like, and that she comes off as like a bit rough, like either probably what it really reads to me as she's going through it. Like she is just like, her life is untethered at this point. And I so feel for her.
No, she's wonderful.
Yeah, I love her. And then she and the young not she's not even the wife of Dabney Coleman's character. She's like the girlfriend of Dabney Coleman's character.
Yeah,
Apparently,
girlfriend.
they run off together.
Yes.
So this time the woman, the wife, runs off with the nanny, which is a good conversation.
Yes.
Yeah. Also, we haven't mentioned yet, but Dave Chappelle
Yep.
at like all of maybe 20 years old has a significant part in this movie as like Joe Fox's right hand man, and I know Dave Chappelle's personal politics has not aged well, but he like for being 20 years old for in this part, he does a fantastic job.
Yeah, he's very funny, and he's a very good he's a very good like friend character.
Yes.
It's weird because I'm so used to him in as in like, you know, Men in Tights or something kind of silly. And he's silly, but he's very, very toned down, like really realistic silly. And so he's almost like the friend that's like bringing Joe back down to reality, which is such an odd place for Dave Chappelle to be, but he does such a good job.
He's not zany. It reminds me, or it makes me imagine a possibility where he, instead of becoming like a comedy writer, comedian, like stand-up comedian, he actually went into an acting career. And I would have loved to have seen the kind of work he'd have done in that case.
Yeah, absolutely.
That would be because I think he's got the chops. The one thing that's almost feels universal to me is or not universal. A comedic actor, somebody who starts off in comedy, has such an easier time moving to drama than somebody who is dramatic moving to comedy. In fact, that is exactly what Tom Hanks did. Like he was a goofy, like not stand-up guy, but like he was from he did The Burbs and The Man with One Red Shoe and like all of these, and The Bachelor Party, which is not a good movie, but is like but like he was a really really good comedic actor, and then he's like, okay, let me make the transition over to doing drama with I cannot remember the name of the movie that like made him a dramatic actor. Philadelphia, I think.
That feels
the one where he plays a gay man dying of AIDS.
Yeah, that feels like the right time period, I think.
Yeah, I think that's the name. I want to say The Philadelphia Story, but I think
it is Philadelphia. I just wasn't sure when the movie came out.
Yeah, but that was sort of his dramatic thing, and then he would go off to do Castaway and a bunch of other very serious movies.
Private Ryan.
So yeah, kind of across the board, like, well, I mean, at this point, Nora Ephron's career was that she kind of had her pick of anybody she wanted. So like, she just did a fantastic job casting.
Yeah, we have to talk about the guy that plays Frank, Greg Kinnear.
Greg Kinnear, who is so perfect as the guy at the beginning of the rom-com who the main character is with, but is going to leave about halfway through.
Yeah, I had a completely different experience with that character this last time that I watched it compared to when I was younger, and I couldn't believe it. It was insane. So when I watched it when I was younger, he's just the guy he's just the boyfriend, and he's just there to be the boyfriend and the foil until Meg Ryan realizes that she doesn't love him, and even though from the very, very beginning, because in the very, very beginning of the movie, she walks into her bookstore and she's talking to Heather Burns' character. And Heather Burns is like noticing that she's all like happy and kind of in the clouds. And she's like, oh my God, you're in love. And immediately Meg Ryan says, no, I'm not. And then she remembers and she's like, wait. Yes.
Oh yeah,
I'm in love with Frank.
I'm basically living with Frank. He's the forgettable boyfriend.
Yes, as a viewer. Oh yeah, okay. Meg Ryan is absolutely not in love with her boyfriend, but she doesn't get it. But that was all it was when I was younger. Like he was just a dude, and he's kind of cute. He's gonna be kind of sweet. And then watching it now as a fucking adult with a fucking actual partner. Yeah. He is insufferable, not only because he just needs he needs validation every second, and he will take it from anyone, and he's just one of those writers that like does something. He has a very good job. He works at some paper. The Observer.
He's the nut from The Observer, the one
he's the nut from The Observer. Yeah, so he has a job writing, like he is a writer, but every single time anybody says anything about his writing, he just hones in, and he's just fishing for compliments. And it's not gross, but it's really, fucking annoying. He's
Yeah, no,
really annoying.
he absolutely is insufferable. I kind of find his insufferableness charming in a weird way. Like that neediness
Yeah,
about like, please tell me my work is good. Please tell me my work is good.
yeah,
Simultaneously also knowing, believing with or acting like I know my work is good, but I need other people to tell me too. Like,
yeah.
there's enough of that in me that I that I can't help but like relate very heavily to him. The thing that bugs the crap out of me about Frank Navasky is that which I never used to get, and I see now, and I'm like, oh, he does not listen to his girlfriend.
No,
Like,
no, he
she
does not.
starts talking, and his brain shuts the hell off.
Yeah.
And that is, I think, an excellent. It's like it's a subtle enough thing that you can kind of miss it, but it really does like broadly color their relationship in a way that makes it very obvious that they're just not going to work.
Oh yeah,
And it's, I
they're
mean,
on two completely separate levels.
yeah,
She sort of notices it, but she does like the nice girlfriend thing and just kind of lets him get away with it. And it
yeah,
happens through the entire movie. It is so fucking annoying, and that's actually what got me the most annoyed
yeah,
is having an actual partner that listens to me and like is supportive and
yeah,
in every dumb thing that I do. I mean,
yeah,
he's still a dude. He's still a bro, and
yeah,
sometimes he will not listen, and it makes me mad. Obviously,
yeah,
as it should. And so he does it every single
yeah,
time she speaks, and I'm like, oh, I'd punch this guy. I'd punch him so hard.
yeah.
Oh,
That being said, like, okay, I can't hate him too much because I see myself in him. Like his whole thing about the typewriter, where like
buys a
I
second typewriter.
I know the bit is that like he's like, okay, I just bought this awesome typewriter. It's an Olympia Report Deluxe. Look at that. It's like he has just been lamenting all technology, and he turns around. He's like, but this technology, this I like.
Yes,
And
this
then
technology is
like,
okay.
and then Meg Ryan points to another one on the same table that he has also brought to her apartment. So he has two of the same model typewriter in her apartment. And then she's like, don't you have another one of these back at your place? And he's like, yeah, so? And I'm like, I that is such a terrible like that is such a dick move. But also that's exactly the kind of shit that I would do. I absolutely am that guy. So I can't hate that part of him.
Yeah, and he is played charmingly enough,
Yeah.
and it is a movie, so it
Yes.
still works.
Yeah.
I think I just was sitting there and I was thinking like what she would have had to have been feeling like if it had been a real situation.
Yeah.
As a
Oh no,
movie,
for sure.
as a movie, it's hilarious. As a movie,
Yeah.
he makes me laugh a lot. But
Yeah.
I just kept getting caught up in the oh man, if this
No.
was an actual situation, god damn.
It's an incredibly good example of like a relationship that just isn't going to work.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
she doesn't like him enough, and he definitely does not like her enough, you know.
Yeah.
I actually really like their breakup.
Oh my god, I was totally about to say that.
Yes.
Same brain. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, like if you're doing this in a rom-com, you know, you gotta start at least one of your two leads off with somebody else, because there's got to be a little bit of a reason for why they're not together initially, kind of a whole thing. And most of the time there's a big dramatic blow up. That's like how you like build your first act tension or whatever like that. You know, you gotta have to like, it's gotta be messy, right? And this one is just that like they get into like the most mild fight I've ever seen, which is like they get kind of snitty with each other in a theater, and then they like leave, and then they're just like, and then he confesses, he's like, I don't love you, and she's like, oh my god, I don't love you either, thank God.
Yeah, and then they have
just
this adorable
so relieved,
conversation.
and then they have so much more chemistry as friends. Like immediately they get along
They're just
so much better.
laughing at each other.
Yeah.
They're just having a good time in this coffee place. Like, oh,
Yeah.
it's so cute.
Although I will point out, this is just a movie convention, but it makes me laugh every time, is that like, you know, they leave the movie theater, they're on the street, and like they're still kind of snitty, and she like apologizes, and he's like, no, you shouldn't be the one to apologize. And then like he's like about to say something, and she's like, what? Say it. And then they cut to the restaurant where they're now having the conversation. But what that means, what that begs me to imagine, is that he's like, wait. And they walk to a restaurant and they wait 20 minutes to be seated. And then they sit down and they already have their drinks. So they've been at the table for like 10 or 20 minutes. And then they finally have their wine. And then he's like, okay, I don't love you.
Yeah.
I just love that so
good.
much. It's so stupid. I mean, like it's
They
just a movie
also-
convention, but it makes me laugh.
It works so well. They also don't show Joe Fox's breakup, which I think
Mhm.
was really nice because
Yes.
it's um it's him and Parker Posey, and
Yes.
she's crazy,
Yeah.
and she's getting crazier by the minute, and then they end up stuck in an elevator to the
Yeah.
point where they're all like, there's like two other people in the elevator
Yeah.
with them, and they're all like, oh, if I ever get out of here, I'm gonna talk to my mama, like they're
Yeah.
all like
They're all
confessing, like,
having
this is
sincere moments.
sincere moments, and she's just being a big jerk, a big
Yeah.
butt about it because Joe's about to tell everybody what he's going to do, and she just cuts him off like, where are my Tic Tacs or
Yeah.
whatever. She's just super super self-absorbed,
Yeah.
and he looks at her and he's like, you can just see it on his face, like,
Mhm.
wow, I hate her. And she
Yeah.
looks at him and she already hates him, like she's
Yeah. She's
always
like,
hated him
yeah.
apparently. And then it just cuts to him with his bags and his dog on the dock getting onto his boat. And it's perfect because it's
Yeah.
like that big blowout breakup scene that is usually in most of these rom-coms. It
Yeah.
definitely happened, and we didn't have to watch it. It
Yeah.
was very nice.
It's an excellent example of showing the audience, like getting into the inflection point where like the audience now understands that he understands,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then just show the result. Like there wasn't going to be any kind of benefit to us seeing the breakup, because like what's going to happen is that like he tells her that he's leaving and then she blows up at him, and we the audience hate her more, but we already hate her as much as we're ever going to hate her because she's a terrible person,
Mm-hmm.
except for the amount of that we actually love her, because
We love to
sometimes
hate her.
watching terrible people
Yes,
is amazing. But like so like there's nothing to be accomplished by doing that, so let's just cut to the next scene, and that's fine, and it's communicated incredibly efficiently, which means you can spend that time doing something else instead.
Mm-hmm.
So we've now talked about both the breakups. Let's see here, is there anything okay, the conceit of
Yeah.
the movie we do need to talk about, because holy hell, is we are dating via email like something that kind of doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
Like
there was something I really wanted to point out about this particular part is this is the late 90s. This is the height of like AOL, messaging, whatever. And this is in the strange time period between everybody like physically writes people letters, and moving into the everybody texts and everybody emails, and that's like the main form of communication. And so it's real. I think that it works so well as a movie in 1998 because not only do they do email back and forth, which is fast, so they can message each other back and forth throughout the day. And there is one scene where they are on instant messenger, so they're like sort of texting each other. But the important thing about this, I think, is this movie is based on the other movie, The Shop Around the Corner. And in that, we're going to go on a little journey here.
Yeah.
In that movie, they work at the same shop, and they actually know each other, and they hate each other.
Yeah.
But they write letters. They write each other letters, like
they're pen pals.
beautiful, beautiful penned, like just cursive. That old timey, like the way our grandparents used to write each other. And it's just an extreme like difference of how they interact. And in this newer one, this 98 version, because it's in between these two time periods, but not enough away from either one of them that yay, we get the fast emailing back and forth, but they still write letters. There's no like they start all of their correspondence as hello friend or dear friend, and then they sign off on each one, and their writing is beautiful. Both of their writing is so beautiful. When she talks about the butterfly in the subway, and like just beautiful little lyrical things and it's still very old timey. And I think that only works because this happens kind of when instant messaging is still new.
Yeah.
So it
you
absolutely
could
would not work now.
Yeah.
They'd have to make it
actually,
like
I have a pitch. I have a pitch for how this works in the modern era. Which is maybe not even modern era. This may be too dated because I'm not sure these things are as big as they used to be. But if they played an MMO when they were guildmates.
Oh, China does this a lot. I can name several shows and movies. I can link them to you. Yeah.
Okay.
No,
but I'm like that
works.
I think that's what you have to do.
Yes.
Or alternately, you make it a period piece if you wanted to make this movie again and do it back in the day.
Fun.
Which would be really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that the conceit of uh making it email, it makes it incredibly dated. In a way that I think most of the time wouldn't be the goal. Most of the time you try to make movies kind of timeless, you know?
Mhm. Mhm.
But because and obviously they were trying to sort of be ahead of the times. They were like, okay, email is going to be a thing, and it kind of was by 1998, but it got not where it would be today.
Mhm.
But by being so bought in on this sort of one moment, because they're also talking about like the gentrification of New York and like it turning from what it used to be to what it would become,
Mhm.
like setting it at this inflection point, which was happening at the time. What ended up happening is that this movie becomes a like it becomes so much of its time that it sort of curves back around and becomes timeless again.
Yeah.
Like it's not that it's the kind of movie that like, yeah, a bunch of stuff in this movie wouldn't work if they had cell phones, but like a bunch of stuff would not, like that's the point of the movie is that they don't
Yes.
have cell phones. Like
Yes.
it's so like integral to the way that that movie is and the time it's set that I think it really continues to work. The whole "you've got mail" thing continues to work, at least for me. Maybe if I showed it to my 22-year-old niece who never knew that time, it's possible that maybe
Mhm.
it wouldn't land with her.
But
Um,
it's a period piece. It is
yeah,
technically a period piece. It
but,
works
but,
because
but
it's in
like
a period.
maybe it wouldn't emotionally bond with the way because we were there, we knew.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think I really do like that particular bit of they don't like each other in real life, although they do. Like they in this particular version of it, it's not that they hate each other; it's that they like each other and were like before they knew who each other were even flirting,
Mhm.
and then the problem is that there's a status thing in the way. It's a little Romeo and Juliet problem going on where
Yes.
like she can't be with him and he can't be with her because they're on opposite sides of a business thing.
Yeah.
Um, which
I
I
think
think that works.
I think that yeah, I think that the for me personally,
Mhm.
um, the the 98 version, I mean, obviously both versions work, but for
Yeah,
me, the 98 version works better because in the
yeah,
original one, when James Stewart finds out who the girl is, like when they decide in their letters that they're going to meet, and then
yeah,
she's waiting in the place, and he sees that it's her. He has this. You can tell he's having this moment of um, oh my god, I really dislike this woman. This woman
yeah,
is vapid. I can't stand her. How can this be the same person that I am
yeah,
talking to in these letters? And it like takes him a minute. And the reason why he goes over to talk to her is like as himself is he's trying to find something in her that is like the woman in the letters. And
yeah,
he's like testing. He's like, is this even a thing that's possible?
yeah,
And I like that a lot. But you're starting from a place where they just really dislike
yeah,
each other. And then in this newer one, in the 98 version,
yeah.
they don't know each other. Like he comes into her little shop with his brother
Brother
and
and
aunt.
aunt. Yeah,
Yeah. Um, and she's so charming. She's so
yeah,
charming, and he's wonderful to the kids, and she's beautiful, and he's watching her like flitter around this store, and
yeah,
he obviously falls for her right there.
yeah.
And
And she
so
likes him back too. Like
yeah, and
she,
he's charming.
yeah,
So it makes so much more sense in this version.
yeah. And then
So
only once she knows that he's Joe Fox, and she starts being acerbic to him, and he starts
yes,
fighting back because
yes,
she's being mean to him, and then their relationship takes the downturn. Like so, we know that they're capable of being really like they really are attracted to each other. It's just that the
yeah,
circumstances that have put them in a place where they can't be.
yeah. The moment when he finds out that it's her
Yeah,
in the newer one, it's such a different feeling because in the original
yeah,
one he's like, "Oh my god, I hate her so much. This cannot be actually happening." And in the
yeah,
new one, Tom Hanks is like, "Oh, but she's beautiful and she's wonderful
yeah,
and she writes these beautiful letters and I really love her like
yeah,
the idea of her and then it comes across more as, "Oh my god, she hates me.
yeah.
I don't know
The
what to do. I have to fix it." So I don't know, it
yeah.
feels a little bit
He
better in the newer version.
that particular I love that coffee shop scene where he comes in and he's he's playing his cards close to his chest because
Mm,
he knows more than she does, right? So he
mhm.
knows that she's shop girl and she does not know that he's NY152. And so he's basically trying to see, okay, I like this person. can she like me? Like I
Yeah.
can, if I turn off the like, acerbic I'm Joe Fox crap, because he really comes in and is like, he doesn't like throw the charm on, but he does not like come at her the way that we've seen in some of the previous scenes. And she just lays into him like in a way that we have not seen previously. And watching him get his ass beat verbally by her, and
Yeah.
then watching Tom Hanks's face as he's like that last little exchange where she's like, where I think it's the one where she calls him,
You are nothing but a suit.
yeah, you are nothing but a suit. And like they do a close up on him, and you're like, oh, dude, she fucking like she read you for filth, man, and
It's
you know it.
it
She
is
found the thing you dislike
yeah.
about yourself.
It is such a beautifully
Yeah,
written thing because
yeah,
they have had these conversations before
yes,
as their online selves
hmm,
about how she has never been able to like say what she's thinking. She always gets
yes.
tongue tied, and she's jealous of him because he's able to just say whatever he wants all the time.
And
And
the dramatic irony being that like they are talking about
yeah,
their
yeah,
own
exactly.
interactions with each other in real
Yeah,
life, which I love.
and then he says, it's not always great because when you do
Yeah,
finally say that thing that you want to say right when you want to say it, remorse inevitably follows. And so
yes,
in that scene in the cafe, she just lays into him. She says all this
yeah,
terrible shit. And right when he starts to deflate and she finishes her, "You are nothing but a suit," she like sits back and then you can see it on her face. It's like, oh yeah, there's that remorse. She feels really bad.
yeah,
It's like, thank you for that Chekhov's gun. Thank you for
yeah.
bringing that all the way through. Thank you very much.
That is a fan. Yeah, that scene. I think it's just slaps on every level for me. It really, really
Yeah,
works.
yeah.
And then we enter into the part of the movie that I think ages the least, which is the section where he knows who she is and she does not know who he is.
Oh, it feels so
And
weird now.
yeah, it feels weird. There is a little thing of like, there's a little period where they're not interacting all that much because he says, like, I'm sorry I stood you up. I can't explain why. We'll talk about it later. And then she closes her shop, and we actually spend quite a lot of time on her kind of closing her shop. And then we enter into the repairing the relationship thing, where now he comes back and he's, as Joe Fox shows up at her apartment, is kind of fucking stomps over every boundary she tries to put up because she's like sick, and he just like barges his way in.
Mm-hmm.
Really kind of a fucking gross ass scene.
Yeah.
But he is Tom Hanks and he's charming and he doesn't do anything mean. He just offers her some flowers and makes her some tea. And then uh, they call back to the scene about like she's about to say something that zing him again, and he puts his hand up and he's like, "Look, I know that you're about to say something you will regret. I'm just going to stop you and then I'm going to leave." And you get that little moment of her being like, I think in my read of it, on her face, she's like, "Wait, that doesn't seem like Joe Fox. That seems like the other guy."
Yeah.
Which I like that little moment. I do think that particular scene, again, like I said, I think he kind of stomps over a bunch of her boundary. Like she
Yeah.
kept trying to be like, "Leave, dude," and he's like, "No, I'm just gonna hang around for a minute," which is just like it's rom-com logic, 90s rom-com logic, where like
Mm-hmm.
that's the way you do it, but like under a modern lens does not work.
Yeah. There's nothing uh, and again, I want to state that he specifically him did
Yeah.
not ruin her life.
Yes.
It was his family and like the big bookstore, and that would have
Yes.
happened anyway.
Yeah.
So it's not like if he had gotten an epiphany in like the end of the movie or the
Yeah.
last third and been like, you know what, I don't want her shop to be closed because I love her and I don't want her life to be ruined.
Yeah.
There's no way that he could save her shop.
Yeah.
And it
Exactly.
sucks. It's a terrible situation. It is heartbreaking when she
Yeah.
closes her shop. It is so awful. It's like it
Yeah.
hits really hard. And me as a living breathing person, if this had happened to me and I lost something that dear to me and it had been basically because of this guy and his family, that'd be it. I mean, I don't care how great we get along online.
Yeah.
So to me now, I kind of get a little icky feelings, but
I think it's fixable, and I think there's even the seeds of the fix in the script already. But we'll get
yes,
to that.
exactly. And but the only thing, I mean, and he does a really good job of like trying very hard and being
Yeah.
very sweet and very kind to her and really doing a good job. The only thing that I don't like is that Joe Fox does not actually do anything to make up for it. Like he doesn't actually like he's kind to her and he's nice to her, but he doesn't
Yeah.
actually do the work. Like he's nice to her and he puts on the charm, the real charm, you know, but he
Yeah.
gets everything that he wants. She lost everything. And then her, like, the ending is, oh, yay, she gets him. And that's great, I
Yeah.
guess. But, like, he didn't really have to work very hard for it. And he
Yeah.
didn't lose anything.
There's no atonement for that
Yeah.
particular thing. Now, that being said, I agree with you. His part in the actually, this is a really interesting dynamic because there's a whole thing about he keeps telling her it's not personal, it's business, right? It's
Yeah.
not personal, it's business. And then she comes back with the great line of like it was personal for me. Like, it was business for you, but like, I had my entire life caught up in this thing and this was just a job for you. And like, moreover, what's wrong with it being personal? If like, that's how like you interact with people, is it being
And she
personal?
says all of this with an extremely stuffy nose, which is very
Yeah.
cute.
Yes, it's adorable. Yeah, at no point in this movie is Meg Ryan not just incredibly adorable.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. So, and I think that is an interesting relationship dynamic to explore, where like one person, like to him, because that's the thing is like we kind of watch this narrative a little bit more through his eyes than her eyes. We do flash back and forth. We see plenty of scenes of her alone without him and him without her. But I think a little bit the narrative kind of follows him just a bit more. We see it a little bit from his perspective. And from his perspective, like, this was just a thing. And if he had lost this battle and they had closed the store in the west side of Manhattan, then like, he'd still be a multimillionaire and he would still, go on to do great things.
Yeah,
so it
he's
really
the prince.
wasn't like, it was so asymmetrical the way this dynamic was working. And I think I agree with you. Not only does he not do any of the work to like, because I'm not entirely sure that I like the idea of it needing to be materially fixed in order for the relationship to go back. But specifically what I would look for is him fully understanding what happened for her.
Yeah.
Like, and which just doesn't do. And mind you, I understand why that would be another 45 minutes in the movie to like properly explain this. Or you'd have to, I mean, you could do some really interesting things with that idea of like, you close the store by the first 10 minutes of the movie, and then you spend 45 minutes, 50 minutes of that movie going back and having us learn with him what it all meant and all that stuff. You could do stuff like that, but it's not the focus of the movie. But that being said, that's the thing I would really want to see from him, is to really properly understand the pain this was all caused for her.
Yeah. But I mean, we are living in rom-com rules, so it still works.
And and it's also 90s rom-com rules. Like, I think this would absolutely not fly even in the 2010s, let alone the 2020s. Like, it's too much.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, this is the same genre that, like, I don't have any particularly egregious examples off the top of my head, but like, this is not unusual for rom-coms.
No, it's always the prince, and then the pauper girl, like Cinderella, like the basic Cinderella story. Not that this is anything like Cinderella, but you know what I mean. He stands to not really lose anything, and she stands to lose everything. And her prize in the end of this is she gets him and the money. And but like, I guess they do sort of, they put some seeds in that she's writing a book, and
this is the fix that could save part of this movie that I think they made the attempt for. In fact, I'm gonna bet that there are scenes on the cutting room floor, either on script version or even that got shot, that expand more on this and just got cut for time. But they're this movie hints that Kathleen Kelly does not particularly feel satisfied in her own position at the start of the movie. She, before they even find out about I can't remember if it's before or after, but very, very early, she talks about like, she's trying to talk to her boyfriend, who does not listen to her, and she's like, hey, I've been thinking about what I do, and I think it's this kind of small thing.
Yeah,
and
she's like, what do I do?
Begins to express some dissatisfaction with her life, and he fucking stops her and like types out on his typewriter, like, no, you are a lone reed standing against like the great forces of capitalism.
She's like, a reed in the wind, a lone reed.
And I'm like, you did not listen to her finish her sentence, dude.
Yeah.
Like, you do not understand. And she didn't want to be a lone reed standing in the forces of capitalism. She wants to make children happy. Like, that's the only thing that Kathleen Kelly really wants. And like, so they laid the seeds there. I think also the fact that this wasn't her, this was not her, she did not start this shop. Her mom started this shop, and then she inherited it. So she grew up there and then took over it. And then you can, that shop is steeped in the memory of her mother.
Yeah. And she feels some kind of responsibility for it.
So like, I love the idea. They didn't, okay, this obviously makes it more complex for the audience, and for things to be simple and easily readable, we want to broad strokes, and so maybe this is bad for rom-comming. But like, the idea that she holds both things simultaneously, of like knowing that she wants to move past this, and that means she's going to have to close the shop, and wanting that life for herself, and simultaneously knowing that like closing the shop means giving up a huge part of what her mom meant to her. That dynamic is so incredibly human. People do that shit all of the time, and it's epic and tragic, and I would love to play in that space. I want to see that version of the story so much.
Several times in the movie, there are people, including Parker Posey, that say that she is wasted in the store because she is an expert. She just knows everything about children's books and children's literature. And so in the ending, when she is writing her own children's book, I think that she's going to eventually, on her own merit, is going to eventually go on and do more for children than she could in that tiny shop. The scene where she actually goes into Fox's bookstore, and she's like looking at everything, and like I love big bookstores. I love them. And so she's walking around this beautiful bookstore, and it's new and fresh and clean, and there's all these books everywhere. And yeah, they're discounted, and yeah, they're not first editions, but it's a fucking bookstore, man. I love bookstores. And she sits down and in the children's section, and somebody's looking for a specific book, and the worker there, who is somebody that I recognize, but I don't know what from.
He was on the Newsroom.
Yeah. And he has no idea what the fuck this lady is talking about, because he doesn't know shit about children's books.
Well, and not enough to. The woman comes in and says, "I'm looking for the shoe books." And that's all she knows. And the guy's like, "I don't know what the fuck that is."
Yeah. But Meg Ryan's character is like, so and so wrote ballet shoes and dancing shoes and tap dancing. She knows everything, and so I do think that they want you to, they plant the seeds, and they want you to know that she's going to write this book, and she's going to do greater things.
Yes. And this brings me to like all of these things that I'm talking about this season. I'm more willing to do script doctoring, or like, how would I fix this? And the thing I was thinking as I was watching it this most recent time, the thought I kept having was, it would go a long way to making this movie work more in a modern context if she beats Fox Books and then closes the store anyway.
Yeah.
Which is, I think a lot of audiences wouldn't buy that, wouldn't understand. Like, it would be hard. You have to go through a lot of work to communicate what's actually happening with Kathleen Kelly. But like, if you plant those seeds properly and then pay it off that way, where like, it turns out that like, no, they're able to keep the store, and they have more business, or like maybe you could do some stupid 80s style or 90s style thing where like it turns out that the permits were filed wrong and Fox Books has to close and blah 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 and sell their thing or whatever. Like, you can come up with ways. I can come up with a rom-com way for her to win. And then she wins and she beats it, and then she's like, oh crap, I've got to keep coming in here every day for the rest of my life, and I actually don't want that. That's the near closure of the store makes her think about her future and realize that she could have a future that did not involve the shop around the corner.
Yeah.
And that becomes a growth moment for her. And it also removes the biggest sin that he has against her, which is that like, he represents the company that, destroyed her livelihood and killed her final memory of her mother, right? Like, in a lot of ways. And it makes that balance a lot more equal.
Yeah, I really like this idea. And I think that in this version, Heather Burns's character is in law school, and she finds the permits. That's how she becomes more important. I like this a lot.
Yeah, I love that. That's perfect.
Miss Rhode Island's going to save everybody.
So now the thing I'm not so sure about, I do not have an easier answer, is the general disgumminess of him knowing more than she does for a good 2/3 of the movie.
Yeah.
And how you balance out that part of the relationship and make it still work and not feel, because every time that like, because one thing that's very clear is that like when he's, for example, when he's writing the note back to her after having quote unquote stood her up, where he showed up as Joe Fox and not NY152, he very carefully does not lie to her. He like originally gives her a couple of different excuses, and he's going, I'm in Vancouver. Oh no, I was trapped in an office building. And he cops it out and he says like, I'm sorry, I can't tell you why you, and he even is very careful about like, you expected a friend and you found like an enemy instead. And like, not even like you met another man, but like specifically met an, like it's very, very careful. And I like that in the sense of like, he's being truthful, but on the same time, it now demonstrates that he understands that he can't lie to her now, because she's going to go back and read it later on and be like, wait, you lied to me or not? And that displays a level of like deliberate manipulativeness that feels scummier to me.
Yeah. Do you think this would work? Since you're going to rewrite the whole thing,
sure, yeah.
Do you think this would work if they just took the part where he finds out who she is out? Like, what if they both don't know for like most of it, and he just is legit in love with Kathleen Kelly, and he's trying very hard to fix their, like, because he falls in love with her when she says, when she shows the handkerchief and she says, and my favorite flower is a daisy. He falls in love with her right there, right in the beginning. And so I'm wondering, can you just take that out? Can you just take out that he knows? Because then you as the viewer are like, oh my God, how are they going to find out? Oh my gosh, who's going to find out first? And you like, they don't know through like the whole thing. And then maybe they slowly kind of maybe figure it out together, because then nobody has anything over the other one.
Yeah, I don't know. I think...
Or they both
I think you
know.
could. You can absolutely write a version of it that works that way. I love that scene so much that I would want to try to keep it in.
That's true.
Where she just, like I said, where she just reads him for filth, but he knows that it's this person that he really, really loves. And he knows he likes both versions of her, because he liked the original, the meeting her in the shop, and he likes, like he's totally over the moon for Shop Girl, because like he literally is saying that like before that is like, if she was as attractive as a mailbox, then I would be crazy to not like turn my life upside down and marry her. Like he is 100% sold on her, and to then watch her fucking destroy him. Like, I don't know. I fucking love that scene. I like it so much.
So we're keeping that scene.
So I think my instinct would be to say that like when she makes it clear that she does not want Joe Fox around, that he respects that, and he still keeps talking to her as NY152, but is much more careful about what he says.
And then she could make the next move to Joe Fox.
Yes, or it's a actually, or you have circumstance bring them back together. Like, for example, if she took the job with Parker Posey's character, because it's mentioned offhand that Parker Posey wants to make her a children's book editor. So if she like takes that job for a while, but is also writing on the side, and then but now she's like, has to deal with Fox Books or something like that. Like maybe she's made the account manager. Like, oh yeah, Parker Posey makes makes Meg Ryan like the liaison for Fox Books for the publishing house, right? And it's like all of like kind of specifically to be cruel to both of them, and then they're forced back together, and like simultaneously we get to see Joe Fox be like, okay, I got to be really careful about what I say, but like now that the dynamic is kind of gone, that like he no longer holds power over her, that like he is still Joe Fox, he's still the guy that she liked, and so she starts to feel the attraction come back. And if in this version of the script, she won, she beat Fox Books, and then closed the shop anyway. So there's not that part of it hanging over her. And then it's this question of, so now she started the movie cheating on Greg Kinnear and having an emotional affair with NY152. And then we end up in the last half of the movie where she is still online dating NY152 and starts kind of having an emotional affair with Joe Fox. But like this time she's the one leading it on. That might work.
That might.
Yeah.
I really just want the playing field leveled. Like I really want it leveled really bad.
You could end up in a situation where like, let's say that he finds out who she is. and then she finds out who he is,
Yeah.
but neither of them knows that the other person
The other one
knows who.
knows.
Yeah. So like she knows that N152 is Joe Fox, but she doesn't know that Joe Fox knows that she's Shop Girl. And similarly, he does not know that she knows. And so they are both like treading carefully around each other, and like, you know, but then they figure it out at the, like, or it becomes revealed at the end or whatever.
Yeah.
Would be maybe the way I could play that. That
I
would
like
be
that a
that would
lot.
be a more fun way to do it, because you could have it kind of that makes the last act kind of goofy.
Mm-hmm.
It's really interesting. The normal structure of a rom-com is kind of abandoned here, because typically we have like the most emotionally heightened moment like right before the big kiss, and then we close to credits, right? Like normally, like you have they are almost about to break up. One of them's going to get on a plane and leave forever, you know, and somebody runs through an airport and then like confesses love, and then they stop, you know, they turn around and they kiss.
Or it's
Instead, what we
outside in
have
the
here,
rain.
yeah, outside in the rain. And instead, what we have here is that like the most kind of emotionally impactful scene is kind of like the scene in the coffee shop, and then kind of her closing the restaurant is like, that's like the emotional climax of the movie when things are at their height. And then we have this long, weird kind
You
of
said
fifth
closing
act.
the restaurant, but
I'm sorry.
Scott means closing the bookstore.
Yeah, no, closing the bookstore.
My brain was like, wait, what?
No, I will do that sometimes. It's just my brain. Just rolled a 1 and pulled the wrong word. Yeah. So when she closes the bookstore, that's like kind of like the most emotionally tumultuous point in the movie. And then
It's devastating. She looks at the empty bookstore that she spent her life in, and she sees like a vision of her little dancing with her mom, and it's like, oh, just don't cry, don't do it.
And then she walks away holding the doorbell that like hung over the door. And you hear the little ding, 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 ding.
Kills me.
And then she's got the shop around the corner sign in her apartment for the rest of the movie, because she hasn't completely gotten over it. Yeah, devastating. But then we have this weird kind of like fourth or fifth act where like all of the stakes have fallen out of the movie, like all of the like real world stakes, because the worst thing that could happen has happened. She's lost the rest. She's like, I almost said restaurant again. She's lost the bookstore. And then we instead have this like weird little like second rom-com where like Joe Fox is like showing up and like just decided to be her friend, and like, you know, charming her and being super Tom Hanks about everything, and like, you know, paying for her bunches of greens while he buys a mango, and like and then also simultaneously like needling her about her online boyfriend who is him at this point, which is I like it because I love seeing the two of them on screen together, and they're very charming and they're joking around. Like he's doing this whole thing about like NY152, 152 stitches from his nose job, 152 felony convictions. And she's like 152 people who think he looks like Clark Gable. And like, they're having this like playful jousting. That's all super fun. But like, when you break it down to it, like he is like deliberately like talking up certain things and like feeding her lines that she will then send back to him via email, and he already knows what he's going to respond to that. And I'm like, geez, dude, like I do not like the idea of you playing chess with the person that's supposed to be your like partner at the end of this.
But it does that last little bit of the movie takes on an entirely different rom-com trope, because the rest of the movie has been this other story, and now you have a third season of Bridgerton where he's trying to help her with her love life. It just happens to also be him.
Yeah. I mean,
Scott, you're making a weird face.
Well, because I'm trying to think about how to resolve that thing. Like, I think you're right. I think the playing field has to be level somehow. Possibly they just don't ever find out about each other, you know? Maybe, for example, you know, maybe we could still get something like the She Read Him for Filth scene where he walks into the coffee shop and he never puts together that she's Shop Girl. Like, she didn't have the rose or whatever. And he just thinks he runs into Kathleen Kelly and they fight about it. That could be the way to do it. And then we just resolve the rest of the movie with them like naturally getting together, or maybe like that's the point where everything blows up. Like he finds out about it and then like 2 scenes later, she finds out the reverse, and they both know, and then they're like left with the mess of this relationship that they both kind of like, they see that like they do like each other. If she like realizes, wait, like this guy who like I really, 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 really like is this other guy who I think I hated, but like I guess I never gave him a chance in the way that because obviously I needed to hate him because he was a threat.
Mm-hmm.
But I never really gave him a chance. Now if I do, what happens? And you could like blow the whole thing wide open where like the secrets are all out by the last act, and then you see them putting that relationship together on a more level ground. That could work.
That could work, but I just think that it takes away the whimsy of the entire story. I think you have to have mystery in that last act. And that scene in the cafe when she tears into him, I think it's very, very important that he knows who she is, because that's what makes it hurt so much. If Kathleen Kelly, just as Kathleen Kelly, were to say those things to him, he'd laugh it off. But knowing that it's Shop Girl that's saying that shit to him, that's what hurts. And so he needs to know at that point. But if you were to quickly in the next couple days have him say something accidentally that blows his cover and she figures out who he is, you still need that mystery and in the last. So your idea of where he knows who she is and she knows who he is, but they don't know that each other knows, that keeps that mystery, and it makes them both feel like they have the upper hand when really neither of them does. And then you still have that whimsy.
Yeah. Or if you want to have like as it goes on, they get more and more convinced that it's the other person. Like you have a slow realization instead that the other person knows who the other like they start to figure it out that like like she says something that like makes him go, wait, do you know that I'm one, like internally, and then by the end it's just a reveal. It's not the big dramatic reveal. It's just kind of like, I don't know, like he like sends Shop Girl an email while they're both in the apartment that they just moved into or something like that, and you hear the noise pop up on the other thing, and then you just see him like smile, and then we cut the credits. Like the moment when he like confirms it, like after they already moved it together, that would be super cute actually.
That'd be really cute.
And then it makes You've Got Mail the final words of the movie too, which would also be really cute.
Oh my god.
We do lose the scene on the very final scene, which I do love, the fact that his dog is plot relevant.
Yes.
Which is like we lose that version of it, of course, but like I love that like he keeps talking about Brinkley when he's in his letters to her, never ever mentioning that he has a dog when he's Joe Fox, and then he says like the stuff again. I 100% agree with you on like their letters are just so much fun to each other. Where he talks about like Brinkley is an excellent catcher who was offered with a farm team with the Mets. Offered a spot on the farm team with the Mets, but has chosen to stay with him so that he can spend 18 hours a day sleeping on a giant green pillow the size of an inner tube. Like, did I say that I could watch this movie in my head? Like, yeah, I did. It's intimately quotable. Anyway, and then like at the very end, when he's doing his big reveal, he's like, okay, meet me in the park at 2:30. Brinkley and I'll be waiting. And then we have the somewhere over the rainbow starting to swell up, and you see Brinkley run forward, and you hear Tom Hanks's voice calling after him. And it's such a like that is a mic drop reveal of like again, in retrospect, super fucking manipulative. Like he's set this up. He has made this. He set a plan and executed on it. And kind of realistically, that's kind of gross, but also like, come on, dude, that is such a good moment.
Use the dog.
I can't help it. Like, I still love him.
We could, in your version, you could still use the dog because they could be in a situation where they're together and she's really annoyed and he's trying, and then he just accidentally says, Brinkley, blah, 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 blah. And she clocks it, but doesn't say anything. Because that would, there you go.
Or like, or something like, they're out on a date and the dog walker calls him because there's a problem with Brinkley, right?
Yeah.
And so he like, it wasn't a but like she catches him, say it into the phone or something like that. And then she looked and like, she's like, you see her like, we had a close up on her face where she's like Brinkley, or something like that. Like, yeah, you can still do a little bit of that too. Or like, oh no, that might be good because like if we want to use it, he gets the phone call, she's like Brinkley, and then later on like they're in his apartment or something like that. I guess I don't know if we still have him on a boat or not, but then he's like, he never thinks that he said the dog's name to her, and she just knows it. Like she's like, oh my god, Brinkley, and he's like, how do you like like that could be another one. Yeah, I think that version of it
That's
could work.
cute too. See, use the dog, Scott. You got to use the dog.
The dog is so adorable, by the way.
It's like 5 different dogs, and they're all really cute.
According to Wikipedia, it was 2, but yeah.
It looks like a million different dogs because they got one dog that has like big poofy ears, like right in the beginning. It's a golden retriever, right?
Yeah,
or like maybe a red.
No, it's a golden retriever.
Okay, sorry, I don't know dogs. And the first one that you see like puts his paws up on the desk next to him when he's writing an email, and he's got big poofy ears, and he's got this little round face. And then like later, the dog has like way like sharper features, and it felt to me like it was like 10 different dogs.
It's definitely 2. It's definitely 2. But that's all I was able to confirm when I looked it up because
they're all very good. They're all good.
They're very good.
Good doggies.
The best thing about Brinkley's actors is that sometimes you see dog actors and the dog is so like in the mode of I am doing a task for my treat that like that dog the entire time they're on screen is just tense and like they're excited and they're so happy, but like you see that like this is my problem with I guess I haven't seen it in a while, but I remember this on Frasier a lot. The dog who played Eddie was a little Jack Russell, and every time that dog is on screen, that dog is like, I'm ready to go. Okay, what's up? Like you can just like feel them, like their intention is entirely on their handler, and they're like waiting for the next command, and they are ready to go because they want to please. And the beautiful thing about the dog actors who played Brinkley is that those dogs are so goddamn relaxed. They are just like they're hitting their marks. They're doing exactly what they need, but like they are not tense at all. They're just like these big doofy bozos. Yeah. And I love them so much.
Cute.
It's really rare to see in a dog actor like that.
I've never actually noticed that before. I don't really understand dog behavior, so I'll have to look for that.
Yeah. It's not but it's a ton of them that like they're performing. The other thing is also to watch for if ever you see a scary dog on like a television show or in a movie or whatever, and they're like being all like rah, rah, and they got their teeth bared and stuff. You can usually see they're still wagging their tail because they're like, I'm acting, I'm doing a good job, and I'm going to get a treat after this.
Like
it's so adorable.
Like the two. Okay, so if you've ever seen The Exorcist, the original Exorcist, when Father Merrin in that beginning sequence when he's like in wherever he is, and he's at the dig site or whatever, there's like all these quick flashes of like Pazuzu's face and the rock and then it shows like these two dogs quote unquote fighting out on the sand, and they are 100% not fighting. The track, the audio track is very scary, and the dogs sound like they're ripping each other apart, but those two dogs out there on the sand are like very gently, very sweetly playing with each other.
Yeah, that's really common. Sometimes, depending on what the budget for the movie is, they will actually like CGI new tails onto the dogs so that they're not wagging. I know they famously did this in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. They had a bunch of dog actors, husky mixes that were playing the wolves, but like they were wagging their tails the entire time, so they had to go in and CGI like wolf tails on them that were not wagging, so that it didn't look like they were having fun the whole time.
That's amazing. I thought, actually, now that I think about it, I guess I thought all the animals were CGI. I didn't realize there were real animals in there.
It's been a while since I've seen those movies. I think that there was a mix at that time, because I know that that's how they were doing the centaurs too, was they were like, they had real horses on set, and then they were for some of the shots were comping in a real man's body and a real horse's bottom half or whatever. But yeah, so it's very complicated. You can, and speaking of horses, apparently if you know horse body language, they are the same way, that like they will put in like the sound of like a horse being super nervous, and they'll be like, and the actor will be like shh, but then they'll show the most calm horse that you've ever seen, who's just like ready to go and very like their ears aren't pinned back, they've got like they're full and alert and ready to go.
Oh, that's so funny.
Actually, on that note, I used to keep pet rats, which are an absolutely fantastic pet, by the way. They are super sociable. They're very friendly. They are actually clean and smart. They are fantastic pets. But that means that have a familiarity with what rats look like, and invariably, whenever they show like a sewer rat on television, it'll be like the fattest, happiest, like most like goofy little rat they've ever, like it'll be this like they're little potatoes, right? Like, and they are not what a wild rat looks like at all, which will be like sleek and greasy and dirty, and instead it'll be this incredibly cute, very fat little happy rat that's like just trotting along. It's so cute.
Oh my God, that's so funny. I don't think about that kind of stuff because I'm always just like, oh, it's an animal. Like I just get excited because there's an animal.
Yeah. Although I think I've already told this story on this season. But have you ever heard of a movie called The Deadly Eyes?
No.
It has another name too. It was a really bad. Maybe it's not The Deadly Eyes. Yeah, it's just Deadly Eyes. This is a 1982 low budget horror movie about a bunch of mutant rats that get released in New York.
Oh,
Virginia,
wow.
Washington, something like that.
This
Is
looks
bad. It's not a good movie. But it is also delightful because it is so low budget and they're just kind of having fun. And so they have to have big mutant rats for this low budget movie, and it's in the 80s, so CGI is not even a remote possibility. So their solution was to get a bunch of dachshunds and dress them up like rats.
Oh my God.
Which, even when they're in their full monster rat costume, they also did like puppets and stuff for some shots, but a bunch of, whenever they have like a big field of them, it's just dachshunds wearing little fursuits and hats. But the thing is, I would imagine that having 30 dachshunds and trying to get them to wear little hats, little masks that look like rat faces is not super easy. So there are a lot of shots in the movie where they are not wearing the heads. It's just a dachshund wearing like a fur coat, and they're so cute and adorable, and it's great.
That's incredible. Some of these pictures, audience, are definitely ROUSs, and then some of them are just like Splinter from Ninja Turtles.
Yeah,
and and then there's just ones that look like teddy bears covered in blood. Like, this is insane.
Yeah. This is definitely a watch it with friends and throw popcorn at the screen the whole time movie.
Absolutely gonna do that. This looks incredible.
Highly recommend it. Good movie.
Yes.
But okay. Is there okay. Back on topic. I still to this day don't know what to make of Tom Hanks's weird grandfather.
Oh, I actually really, okay. So on one hand, he is, he's like a big corporation, big bookstore, big money guy.
Yeah.
But it sounds like, because there's a part where they're talking about the little shop around the corner, or the shop around the corner. Yeah. And he talks about how charming Kathleen Kelly's mom was. Yes. And he might have had a date with her or something. Yeah. And he obviously is slowly losing it because he says that several times. He's obviously got some memory issues. But
no, I will tell you, he does not have to have a memory time. I know people who just say the same things over and over again.
Over and over
again. That's just the type of person.
Yeah. As far as I'm wondering if that character was one of that generation that started not rich and worked up from the bottom. And so I have less of a inclination to dislike him because he seems like the guy that started the business, made it big. He worked really, really hard. Yeah. And he likes Kathleen Kelly's mom, which is really sweet. He's still enchanted by her.
Yeah, he's still like, however many 50 years later, he's still like, the moment that he heard shop around the corner, he's like, oh yeah, that was her shop.
Yeah.
And like, he still loved, like, he kind of lights up when talking about her, which is really endearing.
It's very,
but also
cute.
Like, I guess my question is like, I like that moment, and I especially like that actor. What's his name? He did a fantastic job. John Randolph. He's just a charming old dude. He's an old fart. And I like him, and I like that moment. But I'm also like, from what am I supposed to draw about this scene? Like, what is that communicating to me? I know that in the first time it shows up, he feeds the line, because he basically says, oh, like her mom, that it was Cecilia's store, she was enchanting. And then like he has a little moment of like connecting with Tom Hanks's character about it. And then later when Joe Fox goes to the store and he meets Kathleen Kelly, he immediately calls her enchanting and then covers his being totally besmitten with her immediately by saying it was her, oh, I'm talking about your mom. Your mom was enchanting, blah, blah, blah. And they start talking about, her personal life. She didn't have a daughter yet, blah, blah, blah. So like maybe it's so that he can know who her mom was, I guess. I don't know. I just don't like, I like the moment. I like the character. I just don't know why it's there.
I've always felt that particular moment is a way for the audience to get a different perspective of Kathleen's mom, because
Sure.
we hear her talk about her a bunch, and obviously her mother was
Yeah.
very dear to her, and she was a
Yeah.
wonderful mother. And
Yeah.
like, but I mean, a lot of children can say that about their parents, and it's not true. So
Yeah.
I really think that the only reason that line is there is because we want somebody else in this universe to correlate that Kathleen Kelly's mom is a fucking saint. And like
Yeah.
that's like the one fact that we need to
Yeah.
know about this
And
movie.
and to put it in the in the mouth of one of the Fox guys too, where it's like,
Yeah.
in theory, he has no reason to think that to think highly of this person who, based on what little information we have about the grandpa character, like we would assume he's a businessman and mostly is about money and all that stuff. But
Mhm.
like, no, nonetheless, this person from 50 years ago made such an impression on him that he like still the moment her name is, even like anything tangentially remembered about her or about her comes back up, he's like, oh man, fucking Cecilia Kelly, oh my god, you guys,
We might have had a
that
date
was
once. Yeah.
that was the best. That woman was amazing. And
She is definitely his
yeah,
one that got away. 100%.
yeah, yeah. So I guess I guess that's really there to confirm how sort of like overshadowing Kathleen Kelly's mom is for her life. Like
Yes.
that you could go further into that with it, which is maybe why it feels ever so slightly out of place, is because they do keep bringing up her mom. Everybody talks about how, even when she's closing the store, like people are crying about it, but they're still talking about her mom. They're not talking about her. And
Yeah.
like she's reading story time to the kids like the day before. And
Mhm.
then like everybody's like, oh, but your mom was so great. So like I guess I kind of understand why, like if you wanted to lean into that whole into the story of her being like feeling like she's still living in the shadow of her
Oh
mom,
yeah.
a life
Yeah.
that she didn't choose for herself, that was kind of chosen for
This
her.
this
Like you really could.
absolutely feeds into what you were
Yeah.
talking about before. Like they give you kind of the seeds of she
Yeah.
might not be totally happy where she is. She might feel like she wants something more, but she feels this obligation. And obviously her
Yeah.
mother is this huge presence. And
Yes.
I think that those keep bringing up mom over and over. Everybody in the fucking movie brings up her mom all the time. I feel
Yeah.
like it's just more to reiterate over and over again that this is sort of a responsibility that she loved her mom. They obviously had a
Yeah.
very good relationship, but the store is a responsibility and she needs to be there because
Yeah.
reasons,
Yeah.
and
Well,
I'm,
and
I'm
like
pretty sure that's why it keeps being brought up by him.
I think that makes sense, and it makes her transition. The only thing I would want more out of that is that it become a bigger theme,
Yeah.
because the seeds are there, and like, but like, how many times did I watch this movie before that clicked for me? I mean, like, I've had that thought for a while of the like we need to emphasize her growing out of her into her own person. I know I've been thinking about that for a while, but like I know it didn't, that was not my first time watching that movie that I think about like, oh yeah, she's like, of course she needs to like go on and write her own book or whatever like that. That I think I just would like that theme to be stronger of her understanding it. But I love the idea. I do like that you can love somebody so much and like want to keep that memory alive and want and be afraid of giving up what that means to her, because like it's not like she doesn't like her mom. She loves her mom. She adored her mom. But like having to deal with not just the responsibility, but like, does doing my own, going off and living my own story, does that somehow diminish my love for my mom, basically? Like that's, which I can see how that's a conflict that I think could be super interesting.
Yeah. It is also
I'd
very
love to see more of.
realistic too, though. I
Yeah.
feel like a lot of this movie, even though it's very kooky and silly, it is
Yeah.
very realistic because she is kind of trapped, and
Yeah.
she's kind of trapped everywhere in every facet of her life. She is trapped in some way.
Yeah.
Which does
Yeah.
not, I don't want to be like, it's good that Fox came along and lost.
No.
That's totally not what I'm trying to say. But like,
No.
it does end up better for her in the end, I believe. Anyway.
I think so too. I think that her character needed some sort of push. Like I said, I think the version of it that I would write is that she beats Fox Books and then closes it anyway,
I
because
love that
this
idea.
experience teaches her that, like, no, she has a future outside of this.
Yeah.
And then it becomes a movie in which, I mean, it just gives a bunch of agency to Kathleen Kelly at that point. Like the plot stops happening to her and she starts being the one to drive the plot. I think
Yes.
that could be very, very good. Okay.
I need
I think
to
we've done enough script dog.
I need to ask
Yeah.
this question. This is another one of
Yeah.
my big things.
Yeah.
How do
Please do.
you feel about the product placement in this movie?
Oh, Starbucks?
Well,
Amongst a lot else, I think.
apparently this movie was deemed like one of the most egregious product placement like
Oh, for like
movies.
AOL, of course.
Yeah, and it's I don't know, it's very funny to me because I need 100% honesty. I do not give a shit about product placement. I have never cared about product placement. It has never bothered me because there are products in my everyday life. I get it that like people are paying to be in the movie, but I personally have never been bothered by it. And I feel like if this movie did not have AOL as like the talking platform, it would have just been fucking stupid.
Yes, this is the thing. It didn't even clock to me immediately that we're talking about AOL, because this movie would not work if it wasn't AOL.
Absolutely would not work. Yeah.
And I mean, if they had not made a deal with AOL, because I'm sure AOL paid them just a fucking boatload of money for this, because it's amazing advertising. I also, admittedly, it's very hard to be mad at a company that basically doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
So I can't feel that bad about it. But also, like, that, I mean, like, that was how you connected to the internet in 1998 for like the vast majority of the country. You know, like, you got onto the internet by getting a free AOL disc that like came with 100 free hours or whatever.
Yeah.
And then they would send you another one the next month. And so you would have hundreds of free hours that you could get onto, or you could just pay for it. But like, for a huge section of the population, AOL was the internet. Like that, it just was. And so if ever you're going to do product placement in a movie, like, this is the kind of product placement you'd want to have, really, because it is exactly what would be the move. Like, it is like, that is the logical choice. And so it gets to be the thing that it actually is, instead of some knockoff made for the movie only, like, you know, when people can't have iPhones in their movies, so they put, or a MacBook, so they like slap a sticker over the back of what is obviously a MacBook. But like, no, it just gets to be the thing that it is. And I think also in that same way, Starbucks works well too, because this is 1998. Starbucks had basically just started, and it was still sort of like a fancy frou-frou thing, because you were buying espressos and lattes and mochachinos and stuff like that, instead of just going in and getting a black coffee.
Yeah.
And that is something that they comment on and have a thing to say. Like, there's the whole little joke about him talking about how it's a opportunity for people who can never make a decision in their life to make, 14 decisions all at once. And which is a great line, and is something that would be happening at the time, because it's a demonstration of how New York is changing, which is kind of one of the through lines for the movie. That kind of, like, not just do I not feel neutral about it, but like, if you're going, I mean, like, in a way, it kind of enhances the movie. Like, it's because it's allowed to be the thing that it actually is.
Yeah, I think it works really, really well. There is apparently there was a deal with both Apple and Microsoft or something, IBM or whatever. And I mean, I don't actually know the specifics, but Tom Hanks is using one and Meg Ryan is using the other, and there was a lot of money exchanged, millions and millions of dollars.
Oh, so like, he's using an Intel a laptop and she's got a MacBook, I think is what it
and
is.
there was millions of dollars exchanged so that they could have their computer and have Meg Ryan use that computer. And it's so funny to me because I am not I'm a computer person, but I'm not like that's an Apple, that's a Dell, that's whatever. I did not fucking notice any of that shit. Like, I did nothing.
Yeah. That particularly doesn't bother me, because like, so what, like, they would be using those machines, and if the production company can get a bunch of extra money, and I mean, like, yeah, fine, like, that doesn't bother me at all.
Yeah,
not even a little bit.
It's so funny to go through the comments or the reviews, because there is so many people that are so butthurt about product placement. It's incredible. I went through
Like,
hundreds of reviews, and it was just bitching and bitching about Starbucks and AOL. It was very funny.
yeah, like I'm not going to say that like all product placement is good or that all product placement is neutral. I've absolutely come across situations where it was distracting, you know.
Madam Web.
I did not see that one yet, but I mean, like like any other tool, it can be mishandled. But in this particular movie, like, geez, like you almost you can't ask for a better version of product placement than this, where like it's integral to the movie. It gets to be the thing that it actually would be. It's not shoehorned in so that they can talk they don't grind the movie to a halt to talk about how the sweet, refreshing taste of a cold Pepsi Cola.
Yeah.
Like, no, it just works. That is a criticism that I think is just dumb as shit.
I think it's really funny. And I don't know. I've seen places, movies. I've seen places where they will go out of their way to make something slightly not like,
oh yeah,
instead of having Google, you'll have, Boggle or something that's close, and that's so distracting. It's so distracting.
Sometimes it's one of the things where sometimes especially in a kind of a goofy movie, if it's a comedy, and like they're opening it up and they've got some sort of like an inside joke or something like that, an Easter egg. I love that kind of shit. I also I'm a guy who loves props and the way that things are dressed up for movies and stuff. And because of the way that the businesses of movies work, if you're not being paid to put it on camera, it can't be a brand. So they actually there's an entire industry of people out there who make fake products to put on the store shelves inside of movies and stuff. And they will sometimes have like fake brands, and sometimes they will have stuff that looks like it could be English but isn't actually words at all. And in fact, the most basic form of this is to take actual products and take paint pens or paintbrushes and just like blank out certain parts of the word so you can no longer read what the brand name was, which is a process called Greeking, because it looks a little bit like Greek when you're done.
That's so funny. Oh my God.
So like, I don't know. So at that point, I lose all objectivity, and I just get into the processes of stuff. Okay. So we've been at this for like an hour and a half, but we have a couple other things I want to cover real quick. One, fucking how good is Nora Ephron at picking soundtracks? Like,
oh man, that Cranberries comes on, I'm transported back to the 90s.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And like opening on Harry Nilsson's The Puppy Song, and like that, like she's occasionally able to do things like using Roy Orbison's Dream at one point, and I'm like, in any other situation this would feel cliche, but somehow you make it fucking work. And like, legitimately, one of my favorite playlists I have is just the You've Got Mail soundtrack and the Sleepless in Seattle soundtracks just in a playlist.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah. I keep forgetting that I can do that. I'm not. I used to be such a music person. I was in college for music. Music was my life. And nowadays, I could not name like three popular, besides like really obvious ones. Like, I just don't know music anymore. And so going back to these 90s films where I actually do know the music is kind of refreshing sometimes, because I'm like, I actually know this song. But I forget that you can like go and just get a soundtrack from a movie.
Yeah. And like, the weird thing is that if you go like, with streaming services being the way they are, you'll go onto a soundtrack, like you'll find the soundtrack listing, and there'll be songs that are blanked out because they couldn't get the licensing for streaming. But those songs are still available on streaming, just not as part of the soundtrack. So like, you'll be going down the list and you'll have to find, I don't know off the top of my head if this is an actual example or not, but like, you'd be going down this list and be like, oh, okay. The Sinead O'Connor song from You've Got Mail isn't on this list, but you could just go to Sinead O'Connor's artists page, find the same song, which sounds exactly the same, and just add it to the playlist. It's very strange.
Oh, that makes sense. There's been a lot of, I caveat to what I just said a minute ago. I'm super into K-pop. And so I know lots and lots of the like kind of niche K-pop groups and singers and stuff. So sometimes a K-pop group will come up in a movie or a show right now, and that's the same thing what you're saying. They will not be on the soundtrack, but you can just go and find them on Spotify. They're just there.
My favorite, this one I know it's a thing and I don't understand it, but at least on Spotify, it's possible it's changed now, but when I made I have a playlist that it's just music. It's if the Venn diagram of the music that I like and the music that my wife likes, this is a playlist that is just everything in the middle. Where
Oh
it's
yeah,
just
yeah,
sort
yeah.
of, yeah. So it's like, 400 songs or something like that. And it's just everything that both of us like. And I went looking for the Shrek soundtrack, Shrek and Shrek 2, and I was able to add almost everything except the Jennifer Saunders cover of Holding Out for a Hero was at the time just not available on any streaming service
Huh.
because I assume the licensing got hairy because you have to talk both to the motion picture company and Jennifer Saunders, who's the recording artist,
Mhm.
and the original songwriters. Like, I guess it just makes it trouble, and so they couldn't hammer it out. But luckily, you can find people covering her cover of that song, where it's got all the same orchestration, or at least an approximation thereof, and they're singing the Jennifer Saunders version because it's a different cover, like it's not the same song. Like her version of it, somebody's covered that specifically so that they can tap in on the fact that nobody else can listen to the actual Jennifer Saunders version
Oh,
that they want.
nice.
So like somebody custom crafted, like, oh, Shrek 2 doesn't have the best song in the Shrek 2 soundtrack. I will make a cover of that song that is objectively not as good, but the other one's not there, so I'm going to get all this traffic
Oh,
instead.
that's
I
funny.
love
Oh
that.
my gosh. Yeah, I just don't. Yeah, I should probably like take a few hours out of my day and get some
The
music.
like, it's weird. I feel very like I have very mixed feelings about streaming music because like basically it doesn't help the artists at all.
Mhm.
Essentially, like the amount of money that you get from millions of streams is essentially nothing. And I can make myself feel just a tiny little bit better by I switched from Spotify to Tidal, which is Tidal Tidal, and YouTube Music, because I know that they have slightly better terms. So like a little bit more of my money is going to those artists. So I feel a little bit better, and I will try to like buy their merch and stuff. But I know that like kind of generally speaking, like these giant companies taking over like what everybody listens to is not great.
Mhm.
But nonetheless, like I have found more good music in the last 5 years because of the recommendation engines built
Yeah,
into things like Spotify and Tidal,
yeah.
that like I can go to my daily discovery or weekly discovery thing and like, okay, only every once in a while I will, hit a banger, but like it happens enough that like I probably have listened to more new music in the last 2 years than I did in the previous 2 decades. Um, and like sometimes that's a wild, like I was like a year and a half ago, I was listening to my daily discovery and I heard a song called People to the Peopling by a band called AJJ, and I heard it, I rewrote part of my brain immediately. I listened to it like 3 times, and then I listened to everything they ever did, and then just started going down to, you go to the artist page and you scroll down and it's like artists like this artist similar to, and I just started listening to all of that stuff, and I like discovered the genre I had never heard of before called folk punk, which is just like angry guys with acoustic guitars yelling about how they're fucking addicted to heroin and shit. And I love it to death, and it's so good, and I'm so happy. But it's all because I like was recommended to me by Spotify.
Yeah, my partner discovered his like his weird like swamp music. I don't know what it is. It's like I watch the videos over his shoulder that he watches on his computer, and it's like a bunch of dudes, and like one of them will look like a Republican, but then the other three like one of them has like camo, and then like the hat and like the beard that all military dudes have, and then the rest
Okay.
of them will all look like they live in a shack. They're just really long hair, really long beards. They got only overalls on. They're like barefoot in a swamp. And then they all have like, one's got a guitar, the others all have like banjos, and then one guy is like playing the spoons,
Yeah.
but it sounds almost like metal, but they're playing with
Oh.
like not the right instruments. I don't know what it's called,
Oh.
but
I
it's pretty good.
okay. Do you know the names of any of these bands?
I do not. I'm sorry.
Okay, because I it could be either We the Heathens or possibly Doom Scroll.
Okay, both of those sound familiar. I absolutely know.
Your partner and I have similar musical tastes.
Yes,
because
Doom
those guys fucking rock.
Yeah, Doom Scroll has definitely passed my partner's lips several times.
Yes. Okay. Yes. If he wants to exchange musical suggestions with me, I would be very interested to hear recommendations from him, because I want to know if he has heard about Stick and Polk.
He got there from like really terrible whiny 90s emo. So yeah, the algorithm is very strange.
Yeah. So he probably knows Ace of the State and all them. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Fantastic. I love it.
I love this journey that we've gone on.
Hey man, every episode's a journey of some sort. Okay. We've already done our script doctoring. We've talked about how good the soundtrack is. I will admit, I am a You've Got Mail fan to the core, but Sleepless in Seattle does have the better soundtrack, which is just how it goes sometimes. The thing that I have been pitching to everybody who will listen to me is that I want a sequel to You've Got Mail and Sleepless in Seattle, where the child of Meg Ryan and Tom Hanks from one movie hooks up with the child of Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan from the other movie, and they get to play the parents of both. Like we bring back both, which is just it has no relevance. I don't think it'd just be great. It would just be fun.
I would
just be a present from the universe to me.
Oh God, I would watch the shit out of that movie. That'd be amazing, especially if they brought all the side characters back too. Because it's like Rosie O'Donnell and Dave Chappelle and like all of those people. I need them all in there too. And his
exactly. They're just all old now.
Yeah, Tom Hanks's actual wife plays his sister in Sleepless in Seattle, and that's some of my favorite just movie scenes in general, like the part where he's talking with his real life wife who's playing his sister and her husband, and they're talking about, like, she's talking about the movie, and she's like talking about how they fall in love, and then she's sitting on the couch in her shriveled little legs, and then both of the men in the room start talking about the Dirty Dozen and how they're throwing the grenades down the thing. That is something I quote with my dad like all the time. It is one of the best scenes ever. I just absolutely love that scene.
Yeah, that is great. That is really funny. Yeah, these movies are, and I include, even though Nora Ephron didn't direct it, I include When Harry Met Sally as like the other the other one of the big three.
I should rewatch that.
And that is also eminently quotable.
Yeah, I haven't watched that in a long time, but I remember really, really liking it a lot.
I like it a lot too, because that one in particular doesn't, I mean, like, it's got the big like emotional scene where he like runs through New York at night and like shows up at the party for her, and like that's good, but like generally speaking, like there isn't a lot of conceit stakes for this movie. The basic plot, like they don't have anything big like You've Got Mail, where they know each other online, they know each other in real life, and they feel differently. Or Sleepless in Seattle, she hears him on the radio and falls in love with him from a parasocial relationship or whatever. But like in that one, it's just like, they meet when they're in college. He's a dick. She doesn't like him. Like, then they meet later. They're friends for a while. Like, they both hook up with other partners and stuff, and then they fall in love. Like, that's the whole plot of When Harry Met Sally. And it's like the most mundane rom-com of all time in that sense. But yet they makes the stakes feel high because the emotions are running high for the characters. And that works. Like, you don't need anything more, really. If the characters are invested, the audience can be invested.
Yeah, I definitely need to watch it again, because I really don't remember any of it. And I would do that movie on my own podcast, but I promised my best friend that we would only do horror movies. What is the other movie that Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan are in together? Like, what is it called? Like, I just tried to search it, but my thing is doing the little circle of doom. It doesn't load. They're in another one, and it's
Joe versus the Volcano.
Yes!
I forget about this movie all of the time. Because it's not a Nora Ephron one.
Yeah,
it's a different sort of movie. This, because it's also like way earlier, isn't it?
I think so. I think
it's 1990. So it's before. This is before. It's not before he completely transitioned to being like a like, I don't know, serious or actor, but like this was earlier, both of their careers. And this is a weird ass movie, for sure.
I'm
Yeah.
thinking, is this? I feel like when I watched it, I felt like I was watching a Tim Burton movie. Is this what I'm? Is that? Does that feel right
I
to
mean,
you?
kinda, yeah. Sort of his absurdist
Yeah,
qualities for sure come across in this
I'll
movie.
have to watch that one
Um,
again too.
yeah, it's very strange because like Meg Ryan, like this is if you want a movie where they're playing against type, like Meg Ryan is not Meg Ryan in that movie. She plays an entirely different kind of person who is not the normal person you would expect Meg Ryan to be. I have not seen that movie possibly in 30
Yeah,
years.
I'm.
Yeah.
I think it's about the
It
same
would have
for me.
been the 90s when I saw that movie. I
Yeah.
mean, I remember seeing that in the theater, which means I would have been like, no, I couldn't have. My parents wouldn't have taken a 6-year-old to Joe versus the volcano, would they?
I mean, my parents took
Maybe
me
they
to
would have.
Alien
What was the rating on it?
or Aliens, one of them. Who knows?
Uh, yeah, I mean, maybe they did. Maybe I feel like I saw that in the theater, and that might have been the only time I've seen that movie. It's a weird one. Yeah, I don't remember anything else about
Yeah,
it.
I'll have to check it out because
Yeah, me too.
I just love them together, and I'll watch whatever
Yeah,
they're in together.
yeah. I mean, like, I will watch quite a lot that they're in on their own too. Like, they're
Yeah,
both just
true, true.
incredibly charming people.
Except
Um,
for the one where Meg Ryan falls in love with Nicolas Cage. He's an angel because that one's just way too sad. That one bums me out a lot.
oh, Nicolas Cage was an angel?
Nicolas Cage is an angel, and he like falls so he can be a human and be with her because they fall in love, and then she dies. Spoiler alert: she dies, and it sucks, and it's just so sad. I can't handle it.
I do not remember this movie at all. I remember Michael, which is John Travolta as an angel.
Yeah, not
But that's, I guess,
arguably
different.
not as good.
I mean, I don't know. I haven't seen that movie in a billion years either. If you want another good Meg Ryan movie, the one that my wife turned me on to is French Kiss, which is her and Kevin
Yes,
Kline.
yes.
Which I did not like the first couple of times that I watched it because I have a decided bias against the French and all things French. And so I did not give this movie a fair shot straight time through the first couple of times through, but it definitely grew on me, and it is a delightful film.
Huh. Yeah, I also have not seen that one in a long time. I remember liking it,
Yeah,
but I don't
yeah.
remember it. My favorite rom-com of all time does not have Tom Hanks or Meg Ryan in it, and I feel kind of bad saying that because we're talking about them, but
That's fine.
it's not, I mean, it's not even really a rom-com, but it's the Gift or Gifted, and it actually has Chris Evans and Jenny Slate.
Huh.
And their chemistry is off the charts, and the little girl in that is fantastic. It's very sad, but it's also really good, and it's realistic, and I just really
Cool.
like it. It's my favorite.
Interesting. Yeah, that one's not on my radar at all. I will absolutely check that out. Who was the director on that? Mark Webb. Yeah, like obviously the sort of classic big ones for me. I also really like 10 Things I Hate About You,
Oh,
which is
yes.
so incredibly dated as well, but nonetheless love
Really,
it.
really
I'm
good,
also
very
just a
quotable.
sucker for like a good Shakespeare
Oh, yeah.
retelling in high school.
100%.
Um,
Anything with, oh my God. We just talked about it, Miss Congeniality.
oh yeah, Sandra Bullock.
Yeah, anything with Sandra Bullock. My favorite is While You Were Sleeping.
Oh, that one's weird too. That's another one of those like 90s premises ones where it's like, hey, I'm going to pretend to be this guy's wife, and then I'm going to fall in love with her brother while he's in a coma.
Yep. I watched that one actually for the dude that lives next door to her, the kind of like the Guido that lives next door. That dude is such an underrated actor. I think he's in like The Sopranos or something, and he's just incredible. There's a scene, one of my favorite scenes in movie history. He comes to her door to tell her or something. I don't remember what he came to her for, but he just broke up with his girlfriend, and he does like he tells an entire story with like a few hand motions and some facial expressions. It's like he comes there and he's like yeah, well, and then he just starts crying, and like in that just couple seconds you have the entirety of what happened to him. The dude is incredible. Incredible actor. Awesome. And he's so funny, and he stands over the hood of a car with a hammer. I don't know what you could possibly do to a car with a hammer, but I love that. I love it.
If the I will agree with you on Sandra Bullock. She's one of those people that just like every time she's on screen, I will be enraptured by her.
Her
But
perfect messy hair that like is
yeah,
never actually messy. I don't understand.
but I gotta admit the movie that I have watched of hers more than anything else for dumb reasons I don't understand is The Proposal.
Oh, it's so
The
good
one,
though. It's so
yeah,
good.
where like they decided that they could make executive hooks up with their assistant as a plot wouldn't be problematic if we made the executive a woman.
Yeah.
But and they're like, also, what if the assistant is also independently wealthy because his family's like Kennedys or something,
Yeah.
but in Alaska.
Yeah.
And like Betty White does at one point like a very, very probably incredibly offensive Native American like fortune dance or something like that.
Dancing around the fire.
But
in the
you can't. It's impossible to dislike Betty White because I mean it's Betty White, so like I don't know. Yeah, that movie is. I don't know how good it actually is, but I will watch it a lot.
I have seen
and
that
I will continue
one.
to do so.
Yeah, I have seen that one more recently than all of these others that we have talked about, and I laughed really, really hard. And I mean, they're so both leads are just so likable. It doesn't matter what you throw them in.
Yeah. Well, and like Sandra Bullock she's also she has she does a really good turn in that movie from like starting off as like a woman made of steel and iron, right? Like she is like the most hard ass businesswoman you've ever met. And then by midway through the movie, she's let that all drop. And you're like, oh no, she's actually a sweetie at heart.
Yes.
And like that fucking works on me every time.
Yeah.
Like,
absolutely.
Yeah, no.
What's the one she's in with Hugh Grant where she's his assistant? I can't remember what that one's called.
Hugh Grant. I don't know that
one. She's in one with Hugh Grant where he's like some big corporate dude and she's his assistant and she's just
2 weeks notice.
Yes, and
I have not seen that one.
There's a part where he's vapid. He is absolutely ridiculous, and she's very down to earth. She is a like an environmentalist. She's trying very hard to like do the right thing and like be you know. She's always talking about social justice. And there's a part where he comes to her and she's doing important shit. And he comes to her with these 2 envelopes and he's like, which one? And of course, one of them is like inlaid with some sort of linen and another one is like some special whatever. It's stupid. And so she looks at them and she looks at the envelopes and she's like, oh my God, she just grabs one and licks it and then grabs the other one and licks it. And she's like, that one tastes better. And he looks at her like, no, I've asked 53 other people and nobody came up with that. And I'm like, oh my God, this dude is ridiculous. But that's kind of the whole movie. He's being ridiculous. She's being like down to earth and smart. And she just charms his pants off literally, you know, it's great. It's wonderful.
Okay. I will add that one to my list. Yeah. Okay. Is there anything else we want to cover before we call it close?
I don't know.
We somehow turned like You've Got Mail into 2 hours. Like, right? I don't know what happened.
I told you I can talk about pretty much nothing for a long time.
Yeah, no, it's great. No, I mean, like obviously I had shit to say too, and like it's great. Like it's honestly the runtime sometimes has less to do with the property and more to do with the people, and I love it. Yeah. So
I would say I love You've Got Mail, even with the stuff that I have complained about. It is a joyful kind of, you know, turn your mind off and just enjoy a wonderful movie with extremely charismatic leads, and laugh because it's very funny. And I don't know. I love it. I love it so much.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a movie like unlike some other movies that I like just deeply love, I also can see all of the flaws and I don't have a problem acknowledging those flaws in this movie, you know? But nonetheless, like it's charming and it's made with a lot of love and like it came from a place of like trying to be fun and have and be again like it's got a sharp ass script and a really good soundtrack and some of the and like weird ass CGI from the late 2000s early 1990s right at the beginning for some reason, and it makes me think like I will admit like a bunch of enjoyment from this movie is memories I have of going on to, you know, dialing onto AOL so that I could instant messages with the girl that I liked in 7th grade and stuff like that. And like, yeah, so like I will admit I am not without bias. I will. This is absolutely just playing to some of my nostalgia, and I have no problem with that. But it's also just a delightful movie, even though, like it doesn't. It would not pass muster today, and I would not want you to remake it on its own.
But I don't. But I don't
changes.
feel scummy recommending it at all.
Yeah, because it's not. It doesn't. It's not that bad. Like, it's, I don't know. They don't. I don't know. I can't say it's not that bad, but like it doesn't feel bad.
Yeah, it doesn't feel gross.
It doesn't feel gross.
There are pieces of it where I'm like, oh, that wouldn't work now. But because it is Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan in the 90s, it's fine.
Yeah, and because like, he kind of barges into her apartment, and like, when she tells him to leave or indicates that he should leave, he kind of doesn't. But like in this particular case, it's Tom Hanks, and we know he's not going to do anything. And like he just like puts some flowers in a vase and makes her tea, and they talk for a minute. Like it's just incredibly sweet. He's just checking on her because she's sick, and like
and he makes sure she's comfortable. Yeah, sick.
The ability to understand that like not everything that you see on screen has to be morally correct all of the time.
Yeah.
Sometimes it'll just be a thing that happens, and that we understand that is not how the real world works, but we are meeting the movie where it's at so that we can enjoy the parts that are good. That's a completely reasonable stance to take. Yeah.
Yay.
Okay. This was delightful. Sam, it's been a while since people heard your plugs. Do you want to replug your stuff at the end here?
Oh my gosh. Just search my name, Sam Stark, just like how it sounds, Stark, and you'll come across one of my sites that has all of my stuff.
Awesome.
Podcasts and audiobooks. Yay.
We did not mention the upcoming As and West.
Oh, that's right. Oh, it's because it's like still just percolating in my brain.
Yeah. The reason why we can't plug it is because you got to make it first.
Yeah,
so,
I'm writing.
That's why I need people to be clamoring for it. So that you and Jack.
I'm writing a spinoff for I almost said Universal Distance, Unspeakable Distance, with my character and Jack's character and Interiority's character and maybe some others. I might bring them in for the ride. And it's just going to be very dumb. It's going to be dumb and fun, and it's trans buddy cops in space.
Yeah, it'll be great. All right, cool.
I did it. Yay.
I'm gonna. Well, bye-bye, audience. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Well, thanks for joining us for another episode of Let's Get Weird About, and thanks again to Sam for spending damn near 2 hours talking about You've Got Mail with me. If you enjoyed that, join us next week for, oh God, I'm sorry everyone, Boondock Saints with Quill Turner. I mean, at least you get to hear Quill again, so I guess that's all right. But that's a whole pile. Anyway, that's for next time though. So bye. Let's Get Weird About is a production of the Library of Cursed Knowledge.